Okay, so we all know that when it comes to the guy on your screen right there, Brian Gutekunst, we know that maybe he's not the most active guy in free agency, but when it comes to the NFL draft, this dude loves the draft. He loves to either move up in the draft, inherit more draft capital, do whatever to get more picks. That's what Brian Gutekunst is known for doing, building his team through the draft. Leave your comments. Let me know. Would you like to see Gutekunst make a move in the first round to move up or move back in the draft? Leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts there because it certainly wouldn't be out of the realm. And we're going to take a look at what he's done in the past. But this article suggests that the Packers are predicted to pull off a major trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this seems more realistic when we start talking about projected trades and them being linked to all of this type of stuff. But in this article, it proposes that the Packers should move back in the draft from the 23rd pick overall in exchange with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, somebody that moved up in front of them this past year as well. So they're known for wanting to trade up in the draft, and when the Packers are known also for either trading up or trading back. So wouldn't surprise me. But in exchange for the 23rd, the Packers would move back to the 32nd with Philadelphia. Essentially, they would be inheriting a second round pick, the 64th pick overall, which is great because that's going to be 3 picks within the first 2 rounds. That would be big for the Green Bay Packers. But in order to do that, you might miss out on a key guy. So I want you guys to leave your comments there. And they would also be moving up in the 4th round from 159 to 134. That's a big jump for the Packers in the 4th round as well. So I want you guys to weigh in on your thoughts there. Okay, so Brian Gutekunst has been known to make some moves in the draft. Okay, now they're going to be hosting the draft this year, so all eyes are going to be on Brian Gutekunst, what he decides to do or not do. We all know that, again, when it comes to free agency, he might not be the most proactive guy, but when it comes to the draft, he's been known for pulling off some trades. If you remember back in 2018, when the Packers made a move for Jaire Alexander, they had the 14th pick overall. They moved back in the draft and then back up in the draft to the pick 18 to go and scoop up Jaire Alexander. This dude has been nothing shy of brilliant for the Green Bay Packers as a corner in the league. This was absolutely a home run hit. Now, not taking into account all of his injuries and the fact that, here we sit with Jaire Alexander right now on the books. And what do we do with him? Well, Brian Gutekunst kind of tipped his hat at the latest owners NFL meeting, and that was that he said, when weighing in on Jaire Alexander, when asked about him, he said, we invested a lot in Jaire, not just draft capital, but to move back and then back up to go and scoop him up. But they also signed him to some massive contract deals. So he says, we want to make sure if he's not going to be on our football team helping us win games, that we're going to get something back on this investment. What's his ROI? He's probably looking for some draft capital when it comes to Jaire Alexander. Now, if they were to do that, we've talked about that before, the Packers would only be saving roughly about, $7 million or so by moving him prior to the June 1st date. So should the Packers do that? Okay, so that was back in 2018. And then if you remember, back in 2019, the Green Bay Packers sent a pair of 4th round picks to move up in the draft to get Darnell Savage with the 21st pick. Now, Darnell Savage has had one of those careers that has been a little bit up and down. Now, when he was with the Packers, he had some success when it comes to his rookie year. He had 2 picks, and then his sophomore year, 4 interceptions, then 2, then 1. And then, the Packers moved on from him in 2023. He didn't do much in the 10 games that he played there, relatively quiet, hence why the Packers moved on from him. He goes and joins the Jacksonville Jaguars, where he had 1 interception with them last year. So Darnell Savage is one of those guys that Brian Gutekunst saw fit to move up in the draft. And then you fast forward to the 2020 draft. So 2018, 2019, 2020 draft. He sent a 4th round pick to Miami to move up from 30 to 26 in order to move and get Jordan Love. So this is one of those guys that when you take a look at his rookie year, especially the last 8 games of his rookie season, essentially, the dude had 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, but those last 8 games, everybody was left talking about that, saying, my gosh, the Packers got another MVP, future Hall of Fame type quarterback, and then he has kind of that sophomore slump last year, but injuries didn't help that. He ends up with 11 interceptions, 25 touchdowns. If you look at the numbers are not all that bad, but he struggled early on, especially coming back from those injuries that he sustained. But the Packers absolutely hit it out of the park when they traded up in the draft back in 2020 to go and get him. And then, in all intensive purposes, technically the Packers traded up in the 2023 draft, and that was when they traded with the New York Jets. That was involving the Aaron Rodgers movement there, but the Packers went from 15th overall in the first round. They swapped picks with the Jets, and they moved up a couple slots to the 13th overall pick to draft Lucas Van Ness. Now, the verdict is out on Lucas Van Ness, and if you remember, Rashawn Gary had a relatively quiet first couple years in the league with the Green Bay Packers before he really started to catch fire. And I'm hoping that's going to be the case with Lucas Van Ness because honestly, last year I would have rather had Brenton Cox or Aaron Mosby than Lucas Van Ness. Lucas Van Ness is one of those guys that I think has a really high ceiling, and time is going to tell. I know Brian Gutekunst said he was real quiet when it came to free agency because he has so much hope and stock already built up into Lucas Van Ness. Of course, drafting him with the 13th overall pick in 2023. His rookie year, he had 4 sacks. Sophomore year, 3 sacks. Last year, again, relatively quiet. And you got to think his rookie year, he was splitting time, sharing time with Preston Smith. But time is going to tell. The verdict is out. I want you guys to leave your comments on that. Weigh in with your thoughts now, whether or not Brian Gutekunst should move up in the draft or move back in the draft. If it's me, and I think the right guys fall to the Packers. Now, you can make the argument that last year the right guys fell to the Packers. I had my own take on who I thought the Packers should have drafted, but they go a different route and a different direction, drafting Jordan Morgan, and of course, missing out on some secondary pieces that I think would have been key to this defense. Now, again, verdict's out on Jordan Morgan, whether or not this dude's going to pan out. But if it's me, and I've watched a lot of mock drafts, looked at a lot of mock drafts, I think there's going to be some valuable assets at 23 where the Packers are currently slotted to draft. I think the Packers should probably hold tight. Now, if they have the possibility to move back a couple of spots, not back to 32 and miss out on some guys that they probably were hoping to get, um, remains to be seen. One thing we do know is that Brian Gutekunst certainly doesn't disappoint, and he certainly won't disappoint. We know that is going to be the case. So leave your comments, and as always, go Pack, go.